Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, the search for survivors is called off. New information on victims of the boat fire off the Channel Islands, which includes students and parents. The Southeast braces for a hit from a weakened Hurricane Dorian. We'll show you rescue efforts in the Bahamas as the storm moves towards Florida.
We still have large fire potential coming. Larger than average is what's being predicted.
With a hot and humid week ahead, CAL FIRE talks to KPBS about the outlook for the peak of wildfire season.
These really surround the changing of African American culture in the West Coast.
And from sports to civil rights, see the new photo exhibits showcasing the African American experience in Southern California. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Tuesday, September 3rd. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. From rescue to recovery, authorities have suspended the search for survivors of a Southern California boat fire. 34 people aboard the dive boat are believed to be dead. The boat caught fire early Monday near the Channel Islands. Rescue crews have recovered the remains of 25 people. Many of the victims have not been identified, but some were from Northern California. Pacific Collegiate School is a grade 7th through 12th charter school in Santa Cruz. Today, the school confirmed some of its students and their parents were on the boat.
Pacific Collegiate School is saddened by the tragic sinking of the diving vessel Conception over the weekend. While this was not a school-sponsored trip, our hearts and thoughts are with the families and victims and those yet missing, particularly those of our students and parents on board. Thank you to the Santa Cruz community and others who have reached out to offer condolences and support for our school. Please respect our need to gather as a school community to respond privately and to care for our students and families.
A relative of some of the victims tells the Associated Press that 5 are from the same family. Today, first responders talked about the call for help and the rescue attempt that followed. Emily Schmidt has an update on the search and recovery efforts.
After nearly 24 hours of searching, the Coast Guard made the call. With no new signs of distress, no new debris, the Conception diving boat rescue effort turned to recovery. The Monday Mayday call about the 75-foot diving boat came as 5 crew members on an upper deck escaped. Searchers believe everyone else was in sleeping quarters below.
It'd be perfectly normal for the crew to be up on that third deck. That was their assigned location to sleep.
One recording had a dispatcher asking about locks.
Roger, are they locked inside the boat?
Only the dispatcher's word could be heard, but one investigator says she believes victims were trapped by fire above.
There are no locked doors in accommodation spaces aboard these vessels. It's open berthing. The only privacy that you have, and I'm sure that you've seen, because it's on the vessel's website, are curtains.
A former passenger of the Conception posted video clips from a January 2018 voyage, calling the crew very professional. A Coast Guard representative said the boat was required to have yearly checks. Now, the answers to what went wrong may come from interviews with the few survivors and from divers looking at the wreckage, which is now 65 feet below the water off Santa Cruz Island. Emily Schmidt, KPBS News.
Gut-wrenching, those images and audio. While there are still no words on what caused the fire, people in the diving and charter boat industry say incidents like these are rare. More now from KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman.
Devastating, really. I mean, you know, there's been incidents and accidents on these boats over the years, but nothing of this magnitude at all.
John Conniff owns the Islander, a Point Loma-based charter boat which takes people on diving trips to see great white sharks. He heard the Coast Guard early Monday responding to the 75-foot Conception's distress calls.
I woke up to, there's a fire on board a boat somewhere in Ventura County.
Conniff says the diving industry is tight-knit and shocked to hear that 34 people are presumed dead.
I stand behind the fact that it's a safe fleet and it's still a safe and fun activity to go and do.
Conniff says charter boats are required to have crew members on watch at all times and have firefighting systems and smoke alarms on board.
If you're not compliant, you can't go out. You literally can't leave the dock. So it's well regulated, and as far as incidents like this, I mean, I've been in this industry for 25 years now. I've never seen anything like this.
I talked to others involved in the diving industry here in San Diego who say without knowing exactly what happened and what caused this, they don't want to go on camera and talk about it, but they do say that this is tragic and their thoughts and prayers go out to those who lost their lives and their families. In Point Loma, Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Moving on now to another disaster. Florida is bracing for a potential hit from Hurricane Dorian. The storm is finally moving away from the Bahamas after causing major damage. This is what Dorian looks like from the International Space Station. It's expected to remain a powerful hurricane over the next few days. It's already done major damage in the Bahamas. CNN's Patrick Oppman is there.
We were walking out to a staging area where they're bringing people in from the communities out here that have been flooded. Sometimes one at a time. You can see there are still hurricane force winds and rain coming down on us, and yet these people are going out and pulling people from their houses, from the top of their houses, and saving their lives. Look, there's a little baby here. They're a boy. They're covering up and protecting. Here, I assume, is his mother. Come through, come through, come through. Good job. And they're going on in jet skis because sometimes the boats. Ma'am, how are you doing? How are you doing? You made it. You're safe.
Yeah.
How high did the water get?
It was up to the first floor.
You're safe now.
Yeah.
So as she was saying, the water was up to the first floor of her house. Many people here have told us that the water came in so quickly into this neighborhood, you would not be able to tell from what you're looking here, but there are hundreds of houses back there. And the only way to get the people from the houses is from small boats and jet skis. What's going on?
Yeah, we're trying to do the rescue here in Freeport after the hurricane.
How many people are out there still?
A few hundred.
A few hundred?
Yeah, a lot of homes are over here.
And it's tough to get out there and get them?
It's tough.
How long are you going to keep doing it?
Until we get everybody. We Bahamians. We're not going to stop until we get everybody in.
This is all volunteer. People are coming, they're bringing their jet skis, they're bringing their boats. They're going to get their neighbors, they say. Everyone says they know of people. They say it's very hard to navigate because there are, of course, no more streets. And yet they are doing it. You don't see anybody from the government here. It is all very ad hoc. People coming with what they have, the jet skis they have. They are dealing with horrible weather conditions. It's not safe to be out on a boat right now. It's not safe to be out here at all, and yet they say they know there are people out there. There are people who've lost their lives out there, we are told. They brought back at least one body, and they say they will not stop until they get everybody. They have hours, if not days, of work ahead of them. Patrick Oppman, CNN, Freeport, Bahamas.
San Diego fire officials are bracing for the possibility of extreme fire conditions in the next few months. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson says seasonal Santa Ana winds have the power to create havoc.
Cal Fire officials say the most dangerous part of the fire season is here. September, October, and November are typically some of the hottest months in the region. Cal Fire's Thomas Schutz says threat of a firestorm also goes up when there are Santa Ana wind conditions.
Any kind of wind-driven fire creates a significant issue for us, but having that hot, dry air coming out of the desert, it's proven, and we've seen it in the past. It can get to the point where it makes a fire front unstoppable. You have embers shooting, embers can fly up to a mile in advance of the main fire front.
Schutz says local firefighters have had a pretty good year so far. He says both the number of fires and the acres burned are down this year.
We're able to throw a ton of resources at them very quickly. We're able to typically make a stop very quickly, and we have a sufficient amount of resources to handle that.
Schutz says the monsoonal thunderstorms that are currently hanging over the East County mountains will help keep brush and trees from drying out right away, but he says it's only a temporary condition that's not expected to last very long. He says there is plenty of fuel in the backcountry. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Thanks, Eric. It's going to be another night of kicking off the covers and maybe even blasting the air. The hot and humid weather continues, plus some parts of the county have a chance for thunderstorms. Eric Landra has tonight's forecast.
Well, thanks for joining us. We are looking at a beautiful day again here in San Diego County. Temperatures are still above average because of a big ridge on the west coast. So that is keeping things nice and warm. Here's the bigger picture. You can see a little bit of precipitation over Arizona into Utah. That's because of monsoon moisture that is slowly creeping upward. We are actually going to see a couple of showers or storms popping up over the mountains and also in the deserts because of some lingering moisture. 72 here tonight in the metro, partly cloudy and humid. You'll feel that humidity. Oceanside 68 in Ramona at 65 tonight. El Cajon a little warmer at 72. And in the mountains, it's pleasant, 64 for that low tonight with a couple of clouds, but staying dry. Tomorrow, we'll see sunshine everywhere except for Borrego Springs. That's the best chance of seeing some clouds and a couple of storms popping up at times. 110 for the high there. And in Ramona, we're up to 98 degrees. San Diego above average, 85 degrees with sunshine, and Ocean City at 85 for those high temperatures. Late week, we still have that big ridge here in the jet stream, so it's still going to be a warmer pattern. Notice extra moisture around, so a better chance of some of those storms and showers popping up on the eastern side of the county. So here we are along the coast, some sunshine. It's going to be humid for the next couple of days. Temperatures will be in the mid-80s. Finally, by the weekend, we are dropping back down to the normal region with temperatures in the 70s. Inland, it's going to be in the 90s. Again, by the weekend, we cool back down to those 80s, staying dry and sunny. Best chance of a shower will be Wednesday evening for the deserts, and then sunshine and slowly getting cooler. Look at Sunday, 101. That is going to be a treat. And in the mountains, it's nice. Sunshine each day, very pleasant conditions with our temperatures mostly in the upper 70s this week. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
Plans are in place to repurpose the site of the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. MGM Resort says it will turn the Las Vegas Strip property into a community center, athletic facility, and parking for the new NFL stadium. 58 people were killed and hundreds others in the attack of the 2017 attack. A timeline for the renovations, though, has not been announced. Walmart is scaling back its sale of ammunition. The decision follows another mass shooting in Texas. The retailer will stop selling ammunition for handguns. Walmart will also ask its customers to stop openly carrying firearms in its stores. Last month, 22 people were killed at a shooting at a Walmart in El Paso. Texas saw another mass shooting this weekend in Odessa, where 7 people were killed. Californians will get more control over how their personal data is being used by large tech companies, including many here in San Diego. KPBS science and technology reporter Shelina Chetlani has more on the California Consumer Privacy Act.
The bill approved last year is actually a compromise. While consumer advocacy groups wanted the privacy regulations to be more stringent, online retailers and other large tech groups pushed back. But the current version is certainly not lax. Consumers can still ask larger companies selling their data to destroy that information. When I spoke to Mark Castellano, a cyber expert at the University of San Diego, he says data is broad, so the legislation may be challenging to navigate for some businesses or even consumers.
It's not just our names and addresses and things like this, but where we're traveling and what kind of what our various preferences are in various areas.
Several reports show tech lobbyists are still pushing back on the legislation, suggesting amendments to the bill that would create exemptions for some businesses. Shelina Chetlani, KPBS News.
Thanks, Shelina. President Trump is moving forward with a plan to use money designated for the military to pay for a border wall. The money will come from military construction projects. The total amount is $3.6 billion. About half of those military projects are outside of the U.S. This is the latest step in a national emergency declaration issued in February. A new exhibit at the San Diego Museum of Art tells the story of African Americans living in Southern California. Black Life Images of Resistance and Resilience is a collection of photos from the last half of the 20th century. KPBS Midday Edition co-host Jade Hyman talked with the exhibit's curator.
So tell me about this exhibit. There are 40 black and white photos here, right?
Yeah, this started almost 2.5 years ago, working with the San Diego Museum of Art, trying to put together a project that would fit in this space, that would showcase what the museum is about, which is showcasing African American culture. So we worked with California State University Northridge, who had some 23,000 images. And we culled through those images and got them into 4 categories: entertainment, lifestyle, sports, and civil rights.
And all of these photos are really from a specific time period. Tell me about that.
In my opinion, these really surround the changing of African American culture in the West Coast. In other words, you had the people coming back from World War II, those soldiers who felt like when they came back from fighting for the U.S., they should have a better shot at life. You had the people who were migrating from the South, coming north for jobs. You had the civil rights movement and the changes that affected people's culture. And then you also had just people living differently than they had been in earlier times.
So this is the sports wall here. Some of your favorite ones are on this wall. Tell me about them.
Well, in particular, I really enjoyed this image with Muhammad Ali and Stokely Carmichael. One of the things that the museum does is it does programming to bring people to come and see the event. And on September 13th, we're having a film called Agents of Change. And the reason that that's interesting and part of this exhibit is because in the late 60s, early 70s, there was a lot of strife in the schools. And a lot of times your struggles start with schools when you want to get something going. And so back then, the agents of change were students. And in my school, when I grew up, we also took over the school, and the National Guard was in the room with dogs next door in the gymnasium and guns and all that. And so Stokely Carmichael was the one who created black instead of African American. He coined that Black Power, was Stokely Carmichael. And so having these two together really represents really 2 different schools of thought. However, it's just important that you see them two and having a happy laugh, but behind both of them is such power, such history. Is why that means so much to me.
It's almost like this photo really captures the resilience and resistance. What do you hope people walk away with when they come to see this exhibit?
My hope is that, 1, they do and see the richness of our culture. 2, that they see that there's an organization that's here in San Diego, they don't have to go far, that brings in this type of work. And also just the beauty of our culture. I want to make sure that they see it and know that they can come to the San Diego Museum of Art, and it's part of them, it's part of what they own as well. So I would like the people to come back and see it, bring their families, have discussions, because what I found is there's a circular educational aspect. In other words, some of the young people will see something and they relate to, some of the older people will see something that they relate to, and then they have this conversation and they bring this circular education piece so they have a bigger understanding of their whole person, their whole personality. I mean, to me, this whole thing is about making black art, African American art, giving it to the culture of San Diego. Yes, the African American culture, but to the whole community of San Diego, and that's why we exist.
All right. Kaidi Finney, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Black life, resistance, and resilience is on view and free to the public in the San Diego Museum of Art's Fleming Senior Gallery until December 1st. The USS Midway Museum is marking its 15th anniversary with a discount. Local residents can buy tickets this month at 2004 prices. That's $13 for adults and $6 for kids and students. The discounted tickets will be valid through the end of the year. As the U.S. continues to tighten regulations for asylum seekers, limiting the number of people who qualify for protections, the International Rescue Committee is celebrating this population. This week is the 12th annual Taste of the IRC, featuring flavors from around the world. We're joined now by Laurel Dahlstead with the IRC San Diego. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell me about the Taste of the IRC and the goal behind it.
Sure. This is the annual fundraising event for the IRC in San Diego. So this is an opportunity for us to bring together community members, clients we serve, our supporters, to raise funds for the programs that we run to make it possible for people to resettle and rebuild their lives in San Diego.
So for someone coming to this event for the first time, what can they expect?
A lot of things. So our theme this year is delight your palate and fill your heart. So we're really taking this opportunity not only to talk about the important work that we're doing every day in San Diego, the life-changing services that we provide, helping people to start over in San Diego and get their feet on the ground, but also to celebrate the amazing contributions that refugees bring to the table, especially the food contributions that they make to our community. So we have catering from 5 different refugee-owned restaurants, musical performers, storytelling. So it's really a chance to bring together everything that's going on in San Diego.
Can you explain what the IRC does to help refugees?
So we're there from the very beginning. When people step off the plane, we pick them up at the airport, help them find housing, get established in those very first few days to get going here in San Diego, and then from there we have a wide variety of programs just to help people for many years to come if they need. Everything from helping kids with school and catching up on their education, helping adults learn English, find their first jobs in the U.S., and really start moving up that ladder to stability.
What does it take for a refugee to come to San Diego not speaking the language and then ultimately become a restaurant owner?
It definitely is a lot of hard work, but all the people that we work with are so thankful for the opportunity to be here where they even are able to think about owning a business again, because many of them were actually small business owners in their home country and were then forced to flee and leave all that behind. And so they are here and able to do that again, and they actually have all the skills to be a small business owner, to make their product and run their business. They just need some help with maybe getting that capital to get it going, or learning to navigate some of the specific systems here in the U.S., like our health department and business licensing and things like that.
Can you tell us about some of the circumstances that have caused refugees that the IRC has worked with recently, in recent years, to come to the U.S. and seek asylum?
So the refugees that we're working with are folks who, in their home countries, where most recently they're coming from Afghanistan, Democratic Republic of Congo, Syria, places where they're fleeing the wars and conflicts that are going on in those countries. And so those refugees actually are fully vetted by the time they get here. They've gone through all the security clearance by the time they arrive, and they're seeking a safe place to start over here in the U.S. Asylum seekers would be those who show up at the border seeking asylum, having fled the same type of violence, whether it was conflicts and wars overseas, or gang violence or persecution in South America and some of those areas where we're hearing asylum seekers coming from, and then they wait to have their case heard to request asylum here in the U.S.
Recently, there have been a lot of rule changes and regulations coming from the Trump administration, which has limited who can seek asylum. How has this impacted the work of the IRC?
As far as refugees have had much lower numbers of new arrivals than in past years, although we did still have around 250 new individuals come to San Diego just through our organization this year. So we are doing a lot of the same work that we have always been doing, because we work with people for 2, 3, even up to 5 years after they get here, as they're moving through their education and their job career process. So we're still doing much the same what we've been doing, and of course now stepping a bit more into that work with asylum seekers as that situation is changing on the border.
Tell people where they can get tickets and take part of this event on Thursday.
So rescue.org/taste is the website for the event, and we're actually sold out of tables already. So if people are looking to buy individual tickets, that's still an option. And if not, there are many other ways to get involved with our organization, whether it's being a sponsor of the event next year, or reaching out to us to learn about volunteering their time with our office. So there's many ways to help.
Laurel Dahlstead, thanks for speaking with us.
Thank you so much.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, Hurricane Dorian wreaks havoc on the Bahamas. We hear from the islands as the massive storm moves closer to the U.S. mainland. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A very special book launch today at the Geisel Library at UC San Diego. It was to celebrate the release of a never-before-published book called The Dr. Seuss's Horse Museum. And we went behind the scenes for a look and listen to the original lost drawings.
This is what art is about. Art is then an artist looks at something.
These are the original sketches that were found about 5 or 6 years ago, done by Dr. Seuss. You can see they're fairly rough, but in pencil.
This artist used just a few lines and splotches of color in this woodcut.
Different artists look at the same object and see different things. And because his drawings here, all that was left, are so sketchy, a different artist was hired to do the drawings, the illustrations for the published book. Some of the lessons are the same you find in a lot of Dr. Seuss books about the value of imagination and your own imagination. Little boy and little girl sort of looking at things and seeing a whole new world.
A horse is many, many, many things, all depending on what you see.
The Geisel Library has a collection of more than 20,000 Dr. Seuss books, drawings, and memorabilia. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.